Welcome, Bishop Dejanava.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor and a pleasure. And I found your sermon to be very enlightening and spiritually moving and invigorating. The sermon is titled Reasons to Celebrate. You open by clearly expressing and proclaiming that today's message is a message of hope. Could you elaborate on why hope and why hope is important today for us?
Well, hope is the foundation of everything that we do. Without hope, the people who are hopeless are really stagnated and impotent to change their condition. And so a message of hope is necessary because we're flooded with messages of negativity, of doubt, of dismay, about the chaos and the confusion and the confrontations that surround us. And so I wanted to deliver a message of hope as we have moved into this new year. So often when we end one year and go on to another, sometimes we do a sigh of relief, that we made it over, that we made it through. But without hope for better times, for continued success, we find ourselves just standing in the same spot and the same things happen to us over and over again.
And sometimes I would just like to add, and I like the term use stagnant or stagnation, even though we find ourselves in a new year and we give a sigh of relief, maybe not knowing or considering other possibilities, we go back to doing what we've always done.
Exactly.
Early in the sermon, you state, for too long, we have listened to others telling our story, directing our actions, orchestrating our outcomes. And you then assert, let's redirect our thinking, let's redirect our attitude and our outlook. Why is it important to us? Why is this important to us? And how do the programs of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church promote a mindset that would move us to do those type of things or have a renewed attitude based on our own story? So why is it important for us to tell our own story?
Well, if you don't tell your own story, you allow others to define you. And when others define you, they kind of dictate the things that you will do or the progress that you can make. When you let someone tell you that this is as far as you can go, or you can go this far and not further, you're accepting the limitations that they have placed on you, not based on your ability or your talent or your ingenuity. And I think that for too long, we've allowed others to write our story, to tell us who we are, to define us. Even labels like millennials and Gen Xers and things like that, other people put those titles on us, defining what generation we're in and who we are and how we respond to each other. And we need to define ourselves. And I think that the more that we look at how we are truly inside, we'll see the talent and the growth and the genius that we possess and that we can use to move up further. For 20 generations, we've had people tell us who we were, how we got here, what things that were good for us and what things were not, rather than telling our own story. And when we tell our own story, it's a wonderful story. It's a story of struggle, and it's also a story of victory.
And do you think, I'm just, as you say it, I'm thinking about a couple of examples that are very essential and important parts of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church. One example I have is Marcus Garvey, of course, which helped reiterate and help or challenge Black people of African descent, to redefine themselves as African people, which served to reconnect us with our brothers and sisters around the world. And of course, a multiplicity of programs authored by the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church under the leadership and guidance of Jeramogi Abebe Ajiman, and of course, a variety of people that were part of that leadership. Would you like to elaborate on what I just said, or?
Well, I think that you're absolutely correct. When we think about Marcus Garvey, the founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and the messages that he had, most pointedly, up ye mighty race, accomplish what you will, during a time where most would have thought that Black people had a subservient role in America or across the world. And I can remember messages that I received from particularly I think I've shared with viewers before, I had an uncle who was a follower of Marcus Garvey. And as a young child, he would tell me, you are a beautiful African queen. You are a descendant of kings and queens. And couldn't understand what he was talking about because I was only, like a toddler. But that statement resonated in my soul. And when I was old enough to understand it, I began to embrace it. And it helped me to understand that what I saw in reality in the current time was not my true destiny, that there was something more that I could do. I could be more than people had proclaimed that I could be. And once I came into the Shrine of the Black Madonna, I realized that there was a group of people who believed in the fact that we were a proud and glorious African people and that we could create institutions by ourselves that could benefit us, that we could do things, that we could build a power base and institutions that could benefit the Black community.
And I'm compelled to think about my own experiences when I joined the church, but I think that it was typically for the members of the church to radiate this aura of pride and strong sense of self-esteem and confidence and things like that. You made a reference, I want to go back to stagnation. You referred to Webster's definition of stagnation as the failure to develop. How does this relate to us as a people, and how do we move closer, this is another term you use, to our true calling? So how does the program of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church help us to move beyond the stagnation and move to our true calling?
Well, when we talk about a failure to develop, it means that when you're stuck at one particular point and you don't move any further. And I think particularly the programs, we had educational programs where we started Akiba Land Academy, or where we started the Akiba Land Nursery, which were programs where we educate our children. We realized that the public educational system was not designed to educate and uplift Black people, and that we needed our own counter institutions that could do that. So we began to teach children as young as 2 years old how to read, how to believe in themselves, how to accept the fact that we were the descendants of African kings and queens, the glorious past of our brothers and sisters in the motherland, the contributions that Black people made throughout our history. And we did this not just with our children, but we also did this with adults, where we had classes where we taught one another the truth about our history, that we were brought here in chains, but that didn't mean that we were not a creative and a powerful people that was able to last 20 generations and build institutions for ourselves.
Yes, you are. Thank you for that. Please say more regarding your assertion of the need for us to move closer to our true calling. And could you tie that into your reference to the nation of Israel experiencing psychological restraints? How does you talk about the psychological damage, those are my words, that was done to Israel, and that they had a physical change, but there was the psychological damage. So how is that relevant to us today, and how do we respond to that?
Well, clearly in the biblical text, you find that Israel had been in Egypt for generations, that they had become dependent upon their oppressors, even though in the scripture text it says that they cried out because their oppression was so cruel. But then once Moses came and told them that it was time to exit, they were like, leave us alone. We would rather serve the Egyptians. Why would you take us out into the wilderness where we were to die? In other words, they would rather continue to be treated subserviently than to take a risk to take care of themselves. And that's evidence of a people who don't want to take a risk. I think about Booker T. Washington. He was trying to become an educated person. When he first went to Tuskegee, there was no Tuskegee College, no Tuskegee Institute, but he began to build an institution for himself. He didn't wait for somebody else to educate him. He said, I'm going to build this institution and I'm going to get others to help me, and it's going to develop into something that can benefit our people. So they were able to use the talents and creative skills that they had to build something for themselves. And so many times our people have doubts that we can do it because we keep hearing these messages that Black people are least qualified, that we are, on a level that is below par, that we're not, that any advancement that's done is done only because of our color and not because of our skills and our genius. So I talked about, how the fact that Claudine Gay was ostracized or forced to resign from Harvard will have more to do with the fact that she was a Black woman who was qualified leading an Ivy League school rather than the fact that she lacked some type of qualifications.
Okay, could you briefly elaborate on the assertion or the comparison, or you made the statement that once the Black nation of Israel crossed the Red Sea, they had a reason to celebrate, yet there was still more to be accomplished. And when
right, in their minds, they felt that they were incapable of doing what they were already doing. They had laid the foundation for Egyptian society. They were the builders and their workers, but they didn't realize that they could do that for themselves, that they could use those talents and create institutions for themselves, that they had the ability to create a new nation, that they could build something for themselves, they could build a foundation. And so often when we think about Black people coming together and creating institutions, creating businesses, we doubt our abilities. But when you think about all the Black inventors, the Black geniuses that have laid foundations in America, we built the foundations. We just built it for somebody else and not for ourselves. And so we lack the belief that we can do something for ourselves and that we can create a society that is self-sufficient based on our self-determination and our self-reliance.
Thank you. Could you say just a little more, because we're getting close to wrapping things up. You state the generational oppression robbed people of a sense of personhood. Tie that into the idea of the conditioned self.
Well, when you hear messages time after time that there's something wrong with people of color, that there's something wrong with being Black, where I think that I cringed when I went to see the latest edition of The Color Purple, when the character Celie was saying, I'm Black, but I'm ugly. And I was like, it took a while before she got to the point where she could say that she was beautiful, that she was Black and she was beautiful. And so many times we've heard the messages that there's something wrong with us as a people, and we don't embrace that. The images that are placed upon before us on the screens of the standards of beauty have the opposite effect on us, but we just think that there's something wrong with the way we were made, who we are, and what the essence of our lives. The fact that we're challenged when we say Black lives matter, and people say, well, all lives matter. Okay, then that means Black lives matter. Yeah. And we should be proud to assert that and to say that and not cower in fear because of who may listen to us when we make that proclamation.
And I like your example of Celie and her expressed, maybe we could say, internalized inferiority. And I think it directly speaks to the idea for us the need for us to tell our own stories, because somebody external to us told us we're ugly or we're Black. Exactly. And we internalize it. We are at the end of the program for today, and I would just like to ask if you have any closing comments. I like the conclusion you concluded with a quote from Marcus Garvey. So did you have anything you would like to leave the viewers with, maybe what the reasons are for us, remind us why we should celebrate, or just something you may want to share as we depart?
Well, one thing, I don't want people to confuse celebrate with just a party, but you celebrate and then we replenish ourselves. See, celebration can be a replenishing experience where you have more energy to do what needs to be done. So it's not just a party to celebrate and then pass out, but it's a celebration that you have new strength, that you have new insight, that you have refocused, you have redirected yourself, and now you are getting ready to move to the next level and reach those possibilities that are unlimited for us.
Thank you so much, Bishop Visionable, for being here on AfterWords today and for a very powerful message. We'd like to also thank all of you for viewing another episode of AfterWords, a discussion with the presenters of weekly sermons presented by the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church, Bila Kuta Church Without Walls. We urge you to join us again next week and to like and share our broadcast across all social media platforms. You're also invited to join and contribute to our self-help movement in various locations around the country: Detroit, Atlanta, Houston, Anderson, South Carolina. And for more information, you can find us online at shrineonline.org. Thank you very much and have peace.